Welcome back. We had a barn burner game 5 in our last series. Another best of 5 here between Shenandoah Esports and KSU Call of Duty. My name is McCormiel. With me is Mick. Mick, we go to the Southeast Top Cut. These two teams are in the bottom 4 right now, in jeopardy of having to play in the LCQ, trying to win their way into the top 8 qualification spots for playoffs. How are they going to do it? That's yet to be determined. But Mick, how you doing, baby?
I'm doing pretty great, man. I'm going ahead. I'm looking forward to these two teams, knowing that we're back in the Southeast Division. I feel right at home, especially being that's literally where I am at home right now. Looking forward to what we got to provide tonight, and even then to see what exactly these two teams have provided, because they had a very, very impressive performance when it came into the first split, but now things are looking a lot more rough than they got into the second. So maybe tonight we'll see these adjustments really come to light.
Well, on the Alpha stream, we also saw both of these two teams, the divisional opponents, playing up against one another, UT Chattanooga, as well as their opponents in HPU. They've got a lot of other really, really tough teams inside of this top cut, so getting out of it is going to be very, very difficult to say the very least. 9-4, though, on the season for KSU, 11-13 for Shenandoah, 13-9 for the Hardpoint, 15-7 on the opposite side, and as you go down the list, 12-3, the glaring outlier there for Shenandoah. S&D has been their bread and butter. Opposite side of things, though, KSU, Shenandoah, 5-4, 7-3 apiece. Should be a toss-up game mode there. Either way, Kennesaw State's roster, they come back into this series with a roster that's familiar to a lot of players and people inside of the CCL. You got Shank, Trauma, Doja Cat fan, as well as Snake. And you know, look, it's for Doja, hashtag for Doja, all day, every day. and that's just how it is. We love Doja around here. I'm a Doja stan. Are you a Doja stan?
I'm most definitely a Doja stan.
She's beautiful.
She is.
She makes great music too.
Yeah, she most definitely does. But even then, if we're talking about the fans and we got to talk about the other side of the roster, because we can't be stuck on that point all night. Looking at the other side of Shenandoah, obviously they got themselves a roster as well. That's the likes of Toxic, Helpless, Sid, and Steve-O, 4 outstanding players as well. I've sat there and casted over both these teams prior to this as well. So, I mean, outstanding across the board. I can't really pick out a very kind of, I would say, outstanding player in the roster. And that's almost the best part about Shenandoah. They all feel very, very equal to each other. So, I mean, you sit there and know that you're going to have yourself a pretty good ride when it comes around to finding yourself some adjustments and making sure that everybody's on the same page when you're looking to go ahead and get these practice moves in.
Map set here for the best of 5 series. We'll start things off with a beautiful Bacage hardpoint. Get a gauge of the series in terms of slaying back and forth and whatnot. Search and Destroy will go to Bacage as well. Tuscan for Arc and Control. Berlin and Tuscan to end things out. Need we go the distance all the way to map 5. Could be a great series. Could be a barn burner. We'll have to wait and see. But as double nades will trade things out right off the rip, we'll have the side of KSU getting in the hill first for a nice second of time.
What do you think about this? How Snake had to take some of his own medicine right off the get-go. Knew he was going to throw a nade up, knew he was probably going to find a kill, but problem is he found himself dying as well to it. So even then, you got to sit there and look at this site. Once again, that even in this last matchup, nobody wants to go ahead and touch that P1 too much. Nobody really wants to accumulate that time. Thing is, Shenandoah, they want to grab some time, but they just don't want to get aggressive. They want to push up a little bit, go ahead and accumulate a little bit there, but you only grab yourself 6 seconds. And then what's the trade-off there? Well, you got to make sure you can't give up these P2 spawns. That is the biggest problem out of these players thus far, and you really just can't go ahead and lose the big picture sight thus far. So you already see KSU looking to slay out a little bit, grab a little bit of time there off the rear end as well, and as they find themselves a full wipe, they go ahead and push up towards these spawns as well. Really give themselves a lot of momentum on the map. It's Trauma also looking to lock in these spawns toward the other side.
6 in a row for Trauma, looking for a glide bomb. Player will peek around the corner. MP40 gets the best range there. Beautiful shots, though, from Helpless is going to allow things to be a pinstripe kill feed, with Snake finding 2. They push themselves up the map. They're trying to will the spawns all the way on that right side for Shenandoah. And as you start to make this push in through the barn, Doja will find 2. Tries to go for a 3rd, but sit there for a double. Team Nate will come in and clean up that player. So as KSU continues to run up the score, it's Shenandoah Esports who are on the outside looking in still with about 35 seconds left.
Yeah, even the now standing here star here for the likes of KSU, going ahead getting so much momentum on that first sight. Sure, they don't grab too much, time on the clock, but they do grab themselves a lot of kills. They go ahead and get the taste of blood in their mouth. They sit there and enjoy it. They would have had themselves a little bit more. Problem is, the rotations came through. They grabbed a little bit of time there at the front end of that P2, but they haven't really found too much of a follow-up yet. They know that even now, that's sitting at 17 seconds. I mean, you've got to go ahead and break this eventually, or you look for some kind of contention, but in the meantime, you have to look for these rotations. You have to get to the other side of the map. And we have not really seen that just yet. Knowing that you're going to be going right there into that barn house, things are going to be a really big problem, and Grandma's house is right there in the open air as well as Helpless. So now pushing into that bottom floor, trying to go and grab some kills because he knows his teammates had the setup for the spawns there.
New Hill pops, Snake pops a 2-piece, Helpless there, and towards the point now. Trauma on the staircase, up close and personal with an automaton. It's going to be difficult to win that gunfight 9 times out of 10. 15 seconds ticked off the hill. Shenandoah has the lead for the time being. Kennesaw State, though, in control of the spawn. Steve-O towards the outside. A clean 4-wipe kill feed. It's all going to be red for Shenandoah. The Hornets making quick work of P3. Set up for the rotation here relatively soon, but for now, it's still going to be KSU maybe taking one more crack at this hill, trying to get the last bit of scrap time.
Yeah, last bit of scrap time is all you really need. You want to go ahead and capitalize on the lead that you already got, but looking at KSU, they had themselves something to say about it. They want to grab them sometimes on the clock as well, knowing that this game can't really get out of their control, knowing they had themselves a fairly early lead as well. So, I mean, knowing that's already kind of slipped out of their grasp is a really big problem for them. With only 10 seconds left on the clock, you got to get across the map. You know that things are really going to start getting really, really hectic here with, I mean, this hard point literally being a spit away from the last one. So, I mean, with that exchange, you got to set up some kind of a cross. You got to set up a speed bump for KSU if you're the likes of Shenandoah, knowing you have yourself a lead. You have somewhat of a split on the map as well. Steve already there on the top of that MP40 looking to get close and aggressive. Thing is, can he get the ray in the back? He most definitely does. Finds himself now on a 4 streak. The guy's really feeling alive right now.
Multiple 4 straight kill feeds for Shenandoah thus far inside of the game. Kennesaw State without SD. Doja Cat in for the substitution. Gonna be rocking that MP40 throughout the majority of the series, I'd have to imagine. Sid making the way up through the map. Still Shenandoah, who hold down the barn for the time. Snake with a 2-piece. Shank will go ahead and pair for the third. So it's a nice little kill feed for the time. Got to get some great scrap time here, or at least a good amount of hill time to bring yourselves back inside of this game. Next rotation will be down towards that south side of the map, but with P5 and P4 being so close together and then a rotation back to P1, you're plenty okay with trying to hold for these last 15 seconds of scrap time, but more importantly, even fight towards that back end.
Even then, the great thing for Shenandoah is they went ahead and tried to go for a break there. They didn't even sit there and realize that, okay, this is scrap time. We really can't do too much here. We have ourselves such a massive lead that we don't really need to be fighting for this. We don't have to worry about it. Knowing that we can set up now for this river point, which is going to be coming up here very, very soon. Thing is, they didn't even have to work for him. Nobody really set up for it. Kennesaw overextended, gave the spawns over to Shenandoah to set up for this P5 over towards the river, but the thing is, they've still given up control as well. They pushed right back towards that P4. They found themselves in a very uncomfortable position, and now knowing that KSU is spawning right back to where they were initially, it's really just spawns being given over right now. As what I mentioned prior, it doesn't matter how well you perform, you just can't do nearly as much mess ups as the other squad. And you can see it right there. You can find the kills, you can find the frags. Well, there it is. Shenandoah definitely stepping up with them, having themselves a 30-point lead and looking for the rest of the 25 here in this P5.
Drama was on 5 in a row, got cut down. Now it's KSU who are trying to break in one last time here to the bottom of P5. You see player number 4 helpless in towards the top of the tower. Trying to rotate yourselves in the middle map, get in good position for P1 time. But Kennesaw State has done a nice job of at least bringing this game back into a manageable margin. Yeah. 122 to 78 is going to be basically our total as we get ahead and rotate back in towards the middle of the map. Our second set of rotations will pop. Toxic looking around the flank, trying to find one with the Volk. A couple of players now going to be making their way, and a couple of people making some headway up and towards the top of the barn. More importantly than anything else, though, Shenandoah have done a great job of making sure KSU can't get time off of the early rotation that they had, keep themselves a little bit of a lead. P2 rotations of what KSU held down the last time, they're just going to hope that they can't get those early again.
Yeah, even then with only a 40-second differential right now for KSU to go ahead and keep up with. I mean, they have themselves sitting at 35 on this next point. That's already still laid out in front of them. They're just sitting comfortably on it. Nobody really contesting. Nobody on Shenandoah trying to go for some kind of a break thus far. And this is really going to be a huge hill for them. Knowing this right there in the middle, this is P1. Nobody likes touching this site at all generally. And when you've already accumulated so much of it and gone ahead and grabbed yourself a lead, if you have yourself a setup, which it looks like Trauma may be going for, you can set up for P2 fairly easily. But he goes ahead, gets a little bit overzealous, can't really find the kills to really back things up because you're in a 1v2. So, I mean, that's to be expected. But, I mean, everything considered, you still grab so much time there that, I mean, this game is looking a heck of a lot more manageable. Went from 50 seconds now to 30, that you can get this game within a comeback margin right here, right now on this one side.
Well, here's the thing, right? You know, you're okay with starting off a bit slow if you're Kennesaw State. You know, with Doja Cat coming in as a substitute, you want to give them, get them up to speed as much as humanly possible. A Bacage hardpoint certainly does justice to that. You're going to be getting in multiple engagements throughout the entirety of map number 1 that allows you to go into a Bacage S&D and the rest of the series, firing on all cylinders with the rest of the team. So right now, it's just about getting team chemistry, finding some callouts, making some good team plays all around. If you lose map 1, it's not the end of the world, but you are going to be looking for this win here as well. So at the end of P2, 25 seconds left. Another push here from the set of Kennesaw State. It was nice. That was delayed with everybody, so they get a nice team push together. Should be able to go ahead and find themselves a scrap time here. Snake will find a big kill all the way from behind. Looks to the right, unfortunately, won't be able to find the best of it. So the rotations will be theirs. P2 going to fall to the hands of the Hornets. And now, for the Owls, you're hooting on over towards that next hill.
You most definitely are. You're looking to get yourself a little bit more time, knowing that Shenandoah picked up the majority of that P2, knowing that P1 sure went to the side of KSU, but it's right back to a 40-point, almost a 50-point game. Again, as we sat there and saw prior, after that entire hill almost of P1 going over to the side of KSU, they really didn't go ahead and cut off the corner, sit there and give themselves a little bit of a shortcut for the rest of the game to set up for some kind of a success. So Shenandoah taking the easier way out here right now. Sitting there managing these kills, managing the spawns as well, doing a pretty darn good job at it as well, knowing that this is going to be Granny's house right now. You sit there, make yourself right at comfy in their rocker right there on the bottom floor. But, I mean, no kind of real setup here. Nobody kind of breaching from the top floor. Nobody trying to go for an alternate avenue. And that really might back KSU as they sit there once again, go for a very one-dimensional approach. They got to make these adjustments eventually.
Shank trying to hop in towards the front of the hill. 25 seconds left. Game running out of proportion right now. If the Hornets were able to get that last bit of scrap time, it would be cause for concern. Would have been that 200-point mark that they could have eclipsed. Nestivo just waiting so patiently over towards the spawn side. They're not going to get in this hill right now. Just kidding. They're going to debate me. But KSU, on the last bit of time, we'll go for one last hit. It's definitely okay. You have to push up the map anyways. You just want to clear out as many people as you possibly can. That last little bit of hill time, though, that went to Shenandoah, is going to be an alert that there is going to be someone trying to rotate back over from P3 to the next hill. Shank needs to stay alive here. Great help over towards that north side of the map is going to cut one down. Sliding on into the hill, a beautiful break. It was a contained corral and collapse on that point number 4. KSU, that was probably the best break we've seen from them all game.
It most definitely has. I mean, even then, it's still not a breach that really just hold things out. Sure, it's a break, but where's your hold to back it up? You got to sit there and get time. You can grab kills. You can go ahead and manage yourself to get onto a side, but, I mean, 1 second here and there isn't going to do you any good. You need to accumulate more. You need to get more and more and more. You have to be a point hog. You have to sit there and be hungry for time. You have to sit there and get comfortable on the side. We just haven't seen that comfort out of KSU yet. Shenandoah holding things down extremely well. Sid grabbing plenty of time here on the clock, and also slaying out with Helpless also being on the rear there, doing a much better job in terms of objective and still being positive, knowing that he's slaying on that side and making way for himself when things get rough. So, I mean, the exchanges to come through, they're already making themselves now into the 42-point range. As we sit there now, see 142 coming out of KSU. They have a much longer jog, or even then a full haul around the track before they really get themselves into a comeback threshold.
Once again, they're trying to make a little bit of a flank play, create a pinch, then collapse onto the point. Sid from the top going to find the bullet to Shank directly to the face. Snake looking for the player who's hopping up over the gate. Nice little head glitch there. Should give them a kill. Allow them to work their way back into the hill. Toxic with 2. Stevo with 1. And Shank goes ahead and finds himself on 4 in a row. You have 2 more players that are making their way from Shenandoah from their spawn side in towards the point. KSU, you're trying to get a little bit of high ground now, but the biggest problem is you got to find the kills after the high ground too. Shank on another flank route here. It's been great all game. That's going to be for number 4, 5, and 6. That'll allow them to have full streaks, or about 1 kill off of full streaks, I should say. But Mick, again, even though you're slaying out right now, Shenandoah still only needs 26 seconds to win map number 1. It's going to have to be perfect from here on out, as cliche as it is.
It most definitely will, and I think, quite honestly, you just go ahead and you play for P1. You sit there and gather as much time as you can. You sit there and save those streaks for P2, knowing that's probably where the majority of Shenandoah's control is going to come out. And knowing it's a very open side as well, that's where you can make the most of these streaks. Get the intel, figure out towards the rear end, accumulate some time there, play it slow and steady, sit there, and if you can just keep on contesting until you eventually grab yourself that advantage. Because P3 is so close to P2 that you can just literally hop and skip and you got yourself the time. When we're talking about time, well, KSU once again doing what they did prior. Holding down a lot of this P1 because Shenandoah being like every other team in the league, not really wanting to accumulate too much of it, not really wanting to be out in the fray too often because, I mean, it's a very easy site to go ahead and get picked off of. So this gives KSU an opportunity to go ahead and get themselves in a pretty good lead, or a little more time, I would say, on the clock, but it's still not enough to really get themselves within sneezing distance of Shenandoah. I mean, it's still going to be an entire site to back it up off of this, knowing that they're not touching the site, already setting up for P2, trying to rob Shenandoah more time.
Doja Cat, bottom of the hill. Slides in the middle map, tries to help out the rest of the team. Trauma from behind is going to clean up a teammate while cleaning up 2 other players from the side of Shenandoah Esports. Still possible. Only down by 50 points. Got a streak to work with. Over towards the right side of P2. Here it comes. Glide bomb over the top. Shank's going to be able to spot out all these players, get some great information. However, I don't know if the streak was a little too early or not. Either way, reinforcements are going to be close by. Steve will find the first 2. Helpless had another double across the map as well. It's going to be all up to Shank, who gives away his position with a little bit of a pre-fire there. From behind, it's going to be Stevo. 5 seconds is all that they need. Around the left side, no one's going to be able to touch it here. Over the top, long-range shots are going to be there. Well, I thought nobody was going to be able to touch it, but of course, Trauma and Snake go ahead and win big 2 gunfights through the front. All you got to do now, Mick, is really just either, break this for 2 seconds or maybe find yourself on a rotation. Don't give it up like we saw in the last series.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that.
Look, I know
but,
that
I mean,
made you a little upset, sweetheart.
yeah, I mean, everything considered, though, we'll go ahead. Just to alleviate the tension and go ahead and bring that pressure off my chest and the players as well, we got to sit there and look at the fact of what's really to provide for KSU. They got to go ahead and they got to get split coming. They got to go ahead and at least have some kind of contention, one player to stick behind, but they can't even manage that. They get way too preempted. They get a little bit too antsy to go to that next site, and we see Shenandoah able to close this thing out 250 to 209. We expected a lead from them. We expected that win out of them, especially looking at their hard point record. Thing is, with all this kind of coming to a closure, and with Bokaj coming also to be that next map as well, when the game slows down, how can we see the reaction? Well, it all comes down to see who really grabbed themselves a lot of momentum to work with in this one, and who can really slay out and really sit there and make a statement for this. And I think, honestly, when it comes around to KSU, Shank was definitely playing that aggression game with the likes of Trauma. They are a dynamic duo to be absolutely reckoned with, and they are a problem. But when you look at the side of Shenandoah, you got to give credit to the likes of Steve. I mean, sitting there, playing a little bit of time there on the clock, not having nearly as much as Helpless, who's obviously that objective player, but still having a pretty nice hybrid in kind of collaboration with the rest of his team and what they have to offer.
Looking at the statistics, Steve-O 37 and 30. Look to everybody else, nothing really crazy in terms of overall performance, but it is that hill time that really they're going to walk away with more importantly than anything else. Everybody doing their part, everybody sharing. Same thing can be said about KSU. Unfortunately, a lot of those kills that they did get around the map, though, did turn into empty kills. When we looked at the kill feed throughout the majority of that game, Mick, I'm not sure if you were recognizing it too, but KSU had a lot of capitalization when it was 2, 3, 4 kills in the kill feed that went for themselves, but none of it equated to hill time, or I should say a lower percentage of it equated to hill time. I can remember back in towards P1, P2, they had a couple of feeds where instantaneously, they were dropping everybody on a rotation, and then all of a sudden it was 10 seconds of hill time that was not touched by them when they didn't have anybody from Shenandoah even trying to get on the hill or even close to the hill for contention. So a little mistakes like that, obviously you can start to clean those up, and you hate to put a game on statistic-wise on one player specifically, and you can't really do that with a substitute. Doja Cat is doing the best he can possibly for KSU, but overall, you're definitely going to miss SD in a game that's extremely important for your roster right now. Overall, KSU's 0-4 instead of their top cut. That does not bode well for the rest of the season. More importantly, with only a few more games, you're looking at LCQ. So Shenandoah also 1-3. This is a huge game for both of these two teams to crawl themselves out of a hole that they've already found themselves in. But either way, we'll look at our map set one more time here. 250 to 209, the score of map number 1. We stay on Bokaj for the search and destroy. Team who has the best record overall in the S&D, well, that's clearly going to go to the side of Shenandoah Esports at 12-3. And this is where you don't want to be if you are KSU, because the Hornets, they're very good at S&D.
Yeah.
KSU's not bad, but they're not great.
And even then, you also got to sit there. I don't want to sit there and hound on Doja Cat for way too long, but I mean, the fact that that is your sub, and looking at the hard point, we sat there and saw great breaks from them. We really did. We saw the aggression, but their biggest problem was, I would say, the quote-unquote post plan, even though it was holding down the site, playing defense, just as a bigger scheme in a broader term.
Yep.
The fact that they can't hold a site whenever they get onto it, that spells a lot of trouble, not only for Hardpoint, but even then on Search and Destroy. When you get that bomb down, sure, they can be very fast for that. They can find maybe a kill or two, but when you can't really sit there and leave the entire map open, showing that your post plan is that weak, knowing your defense, you can't sit there and set up for a site, and you have that huge hole that allows the likes of Shenandoah to manipulate that. Seeing how strong their S&D is, that is going to be a huge problem that you have to tighten up extremely quickly. And thankfully, you were just on Bokaj, so you can make those adjustments right now as we're talking, but they have to be made instantaneously. I mean, we are biding more time for you as we speak. KSU, you need to make the most of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing from KSU is, we've gotten opportunities to watch them multiple times throughout the year. They're consistently inconsistent, if that makes sense. I've seen a lot of really strong moments from Kennesaw State when it comes to hardpoint and respawn specifically. Same thing can be said about S&D at times, but then there's all of a sudden these moments where they're playing up against teams and you're like, where did they go? Where did the team comm go? Where did everything go? You had this group of things that was so good here, and then all of a sudden you just pushed everything back over to this side, and it's just this discombobulated mess, and you're just wondering what the hell happened. So you just hope that it's over here and not over here when it comes to the search and destroy, because you got to win the search and destroy to stick in the series. Because if you go to a map number 3 with Shenandoah having the availability to close out the series 2-0.
I think a better term there would be efficiently clumsy, honestly. you get a read, you sit there and know these players are really potential a lot, and they sit there and they are very good whenever they find themselves shining. But the thing is, they find so many trip-ups. They're always kind of tripping over themselves, and it's not really the best look for them. I mean, you sit there, you have such a nice day. You go ahead, you present yourself in front of these other teams with a suit and tie, or dress them in full informal attire. But the thing is, you're always sitting there getting, you know, the mud splashed on you. You're sitting there, it's a rainy day. Something always happens to line up here. You need to sit there and become prepared. You got to bring an umbrella. You got to sit there and bring a rain jacket. No matter what may be, we just don't see those backup plans for the side of KSU to really bounce back from these scenarios. So maybe this could be the time, knowing that they have the backup player in the game right now, they can start breaking out these backup plans and possibly switch things up to an extent that can really give themselves a differential.
Well, if you're Shenandoah, hopefully you bought the trudging boots with you. On the offense, you're going to have to be moving up the map through the mud of Bacage. This Helpless is going to be the first one up for a challenge over towards the A site. Snake will find the first blood here inside of the round. So a good opening break off here for Shenandoah. Or excuse me, KSU. Snake will find the second one there. Gets out with his life for both of those kills, which is the biggest single-handed thing you can possibly walk away with in a round of search and destroy. Very passive over towards the defensive side. Now, this is what you come to expect of a team after they get the first 2 kills.
Yeah, so great start here for the likes of KSU. We sat there and wanted an answer from them. We wanted a pretty good start, and even then, grabbing around one would be a pretty darn good statement for them to go ahead and start things off. But the thing is, you're still playing defense. You're looking for these angles. You play these ratty corners, and there it is. The kill to come out from Doja Cat, just playing slow and steady into a corner, waiting for the site, waiting for the bomb to be planted, but just never comes around. Instead, what does come around is KSU grabs themselves that first round onto the defense, which I feel like it's been a little bit of a weaker side here recently, at least for the teams here tonight. But even then, 2 teams now being in a completely different situation, a completely different region, a completely different style overall. So maybe, do we sit there and find a mutual handshake of back-to-back on these defenses, or do we go ahead and see KSU backing things up, saying, look, we sit there, if we shut Shenandoah down on this S&D, we're going to look a heck of a lot better than they do for the control.
Snake with 3 in the first round there. Everybody's staying alive except for Shank in the first round. So basically flawless. Offensive try. Bomb going to be working his way through the middle of the map over towards the A site. Looking for the first blood. Snake trying to get Mixie. First one pushed up that halfway point in the map. Nade into the top window. Try to get some information. Realized there wasn't at least anybody at the window at the time. Over towards the left side, you know somebody with an automaton is going to be pushing all the way in the back. Steve doesn't challenge it immediately, but finally will. So there's the streak cut off for the Kennesaw State Owls. Shake the next one up to challenge. Steve will find the second one as well. So Kennesaw State, a great defensive round. Unfortunately, it's basically the exact same thing we see flipped in the other side for Shenandoah here now in round number 2. 3 versus 2 with 42 seconds left.
It all comes down to the plays here. It all comes down to really what Shenandoah can do to set themselves up. I mean, they're playing the defense. They want to play it slow and steady, but they don't want to have a breach to come in on them. They don't want a double swing out of the likes of Doja Cat and Trauma to go on to a side and really just find this opportunity to create for themselves. So when you're playing defense, there's kind of a small, weird art to it where you want to play aggressive, but you don't want to play aggressive. You don't want to get overzealous. And there it is. Getting a little bit too angry there. See the likes of all Steve-O as Trauma finds the back of his head, making things look a heck of a lot more doable. And Doja sitting there saying, look, that kill's towards B. Let's get the plant down. We sit there and got to get the read and see where these players are about. And when you get that stun there, you say, all right, somebody's tunnel. Let's back up back towards our spawn where you originally came from. See if we can find some kills. And there it is. Doja with 1.
1v2. You got to find the kills and get the defuse as well. Doja Cat will be peppered up. Escapes with his life over towards that P1 side. Trauma playing all the way back. Decides to pull out the MP40. Might get some unfortunate timing here. Turns around, but player number 3 instead hadn't pushed up all the way just yet. We'll finally slide across. That's going to be information for Trauma, but it gets down. So 1 versus 1. Tries to hop the bomb. Maybe fakes out the kill cam. Looks up for Doja Cat around the site. 11 seconds left. Might be able to jump back down onto the bomb. Sid, you got to go now. You got to go now. Oh! I don't know if he got it. I think he might have, but he might be like half a second too short because he took an extra second of time to go ahead and delay himself. No, he didn't get it. Oh, my God. See, that's what you can't do, Nick. That's what you can't do. You get the kill with 10 seconds left, and then you wait until like 9.5, almost 8.5 seconds left to jump down onto the bomb. Oh, that's a bad moment right there. You had to clutch right in front of you, Mick. You choked it.
That is the, like, I want to say the 7th scenario I have seen at least tonight, or cast over tonight. It's been all down to literally less than a second of a difference. And I mean, we just can't have this. This is split 2. You can't have these mistakes anymore. You should iron this out. You should be determined. You should know exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it. When you clutch things up, you can't sit there and say, sweet guys, let's go, and take your hands off the control to stretch your fingers. You have to finish the job.
Bro, Mick, you know what's funny about that? It was like one of those moments where, like, you know, you're sitting there, you think you've lost the round or something like that because, like, oh, time's running out. You know, you were just trying to go desperation for that final kill. And then once you, like, stop moving for a second, you, like, turn somewhere else. Your team was like, go to the bomb! Go to the bomb, dude! What are you doing?
I guarantee they're screaming at him.
Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, the way he turned around that quickly, it was crazy. But Shenandoah, they correct their mistakes here in this round. They go ahead and go flawless. 4 up, 4 down, 1-2. Now we go in the search and destroy. So, Kennesaw State, what was a odd clutch to say the very least, turns into a Shenandoah round win. So first 2 rounds go one way, the second now goes to the opposition, and we can start talking about potential adjustments here on the offensive side. Either way, Mick, KSU in the driver's seat of the game still. We'll see what they do here on the offensive try.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I think it comes down to Shenandoah just having the name in the game and consistency thus far. You can sit there and look at the frags coming through for him. Every single player being relevant in this fight thus far. But, I mean, KSU just playing around the objective. Just doing the work where it needs to be played. And Doja, you got to hit that, buddy. You got to back up.
Walls and Call of Duty, we love them.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, maybe in Walls in real life you could just bang your head enough times, but you got to sprint from a distance there. But I mean, enough tutoring. We're not being paid to coach. We're being paid to cast. So looking at the setup thus far, Shank still has not been on the board. I mean, this guy's been 0-3, and the fact that KSU is still up 2-1 thus far is pretty impressive. To know that you're still going ahead and fighting. You found a lead when you haven't done too much. So finally managed to get on the board, but immediately gets traded out as you also give Toxic the likes of an MP40 as well. So the guy can go ahead and excel at any single range now. He's adapted to every single fight, but it's still a 3v2 for him, so you better be adjusted for everything. Find the kills, but you just can't do it. You find the trades if you're KSU, you find yourself another round, and now it's up 3-1.
Another good round there from Kennesaw State. You know, at least the one thing coming in from the hard point, you know, I said it was a detrimental thing inside of map 1, but, you know, slaying does carry over game mode to game mode, so they outslayed Shenandoah in map number 1. Maybe they didn't play the objective to the best of their abilities, but at least they've brought what they had in map 1 from the slaying into map 2, and it's allowed them to jump out to a nice 3-1 lead. 4-2 from Trauma and Doja Cat alike. Kennesaw State on the defensive side now, trying to get themselves into a position where they can hold the push here from Shenandoah. The Hornets are looking to get aggressive in towards the middle of the map. Double challenge through the double doors. Sid will find the first blood, tries to go for number 2, but Trauma with the automaton on the staircase, going to trade that out instantaneously. 3 versus 3 with 20 seconds off the clock.
And even then, you look at the bomb and where it's exactly going. You can already see Doja kind of being set up towards the edge of the map, looking for the speed side. But the thing is, that's Shenandoah. They're looking to overwhelm that and still find themselves in presence towards the middle of the map. And you can see it right there. I mean, the likes of Steve-O trying to get that pressure, trying to play inside the old house around A, trying to alleviate that attention. It just doesn't work. It's now a 2v3. KSU have themselves the advantage, and they go ahead and get the flank as well. So, I mean, a big problem here for Steve-O. Now going ahead, trying to go ahead and play a little bit of a wild card, and now it needs to be a wild card to win a 3v1 and just can't exactly pull it out as KSU sit there and do pull out this next round, get themselves up in a pretty comfortable manner of a 4-1 lead thus far.
You know, I get Helpless was making sure that he couldn't get killed from the left side, but at least trying to escape off the bomb, get behind some cover, or just play for a different positioning there would have been so much better. But just laying down on the bomb 9 times out of 10 is not going to work for you, bud. So there we go. Another round to Kennesaw State. Apparently, you know, for Search and Destroy, they on paper don't look great. But again, I throw statistics out the window at the beginning series because in the CCL, I never know what I'm going to get out of any given team at any given time, unless they're maybe like a top 3 to 5 team. And even then, there's a dichotomy between, you know, even Ottawa and ASU, who was ranked 3 and 7. So, you know, every statistic is just thrown out the window at every kind of corner. But Shank will find the first blood here in the round. 15 seconds off the clock yet again. Just playing passive here on the defensive side is the Shenandoah Hornets, who are cut down to a 3-man tie.
And even then, when you look at the likes of so far, I mean, the 3v3 obviously is a good standing, but I mean, if you're the likes of KSU, you still need to get onto a bomb site. You still have to make a play. You still have to set something up. That's exactly what they do. A perfect breach onto a site, overwhelming a player, every single angle being checked at the same time. Sure, you miss one and you find yourself in an overwhelming spot if you're Shenandoah, but still a 2v2 at the end of this, and that bomb is down. You know exactly where it is. You know where some of these players are going to be. Problem is, they're all scattering about. If you sat there and saw Toxic immediately go for that bomb, he could have found that defusal almost immediately, but instead, you sit there and see Steve-O being picked off. You now have top control. You can look right over that bomb if they do find that go into the defuse, but Toxic now getting in the read of his own, sitting there saying, well, Shank moved out to the left. Couldn't find the shots, couldn't find the kill, but you still can't find the defuse either because there's still too many players alive.
I was going to say that should be the end of the round there. You give yourself up the information already to the side of Kennesaw State. So 5-1. Shenandoah, I complimented them beforehand. Bread and butter of their search and destroy was for the majority of the season. So far inside of this series, the answer has been a staunch no. Kennesaw State has absolutely been the better team here in the search and destroy. So I'm a humble man. I will eat my words. I definitely said the KSU probably wasn't going to win the search and destroy here in map number 2. I was proven wrong, and for good reason. Doja Cat, Trauma, everybody having a fantastic game for themselves. Shank started off a little slow, but now on 3 in a row. So 5-1 lead, match point here, trying to tie the series up at 1 apiece. Again, very big game for both of these two teams inside of the division, as I mentioned beforehand, both trying to get outside of the bottom 4 to make it to automatic playoff qualification instead of having to go through the ringer of the LCQ. Snake nade over towards the right side. Bomb worked its way in towards that A site. They don't realize anybody's really not on that A site. There's only one person actually occupying the building on the defensive side.
And even then, you guys sit there and look at the likes of what the setup may be. Nobody's occupying A, and he's sitting there in a very weird spot towards the top trying to get full control of the map. That's great. You have a little bit of an oracle over what's going on everywhere. Thing is, the one place you're missing is right under you where the bomb is and the exact objective you're supposed to be defending. Because Steve-O's already wiped out 3 of those players to absolutely make it a reckoning in this round and sit there saying, look, you've sat there and bullied us long enough. If I keep on playing like this and you give me that momentum to work with, we're going to make quick work of you and turn this thing around.
We see the final kill there from Sid to end the round off. Big 3 kills that came in quick succession there from Steve-O. Had himself a nice little S&D game. Really the only one that's performing somewhat well for the side of Shenandoah Esports. They win that last round. It's not a complete full sale that they need to go ahead and win the search and destroy, but it'd basically be a full sale in layman's terms. 2-5 down now. Trying to push through the middle of the map. Extremely aggressive. They get into the corner. Trying to break it on over towards this A side. Down and towards the swamp side, it's going to be Sid who's trying to play the head glitch. Steve-O will continue the reign of terror here on Bakash with another kill onto Shank. Trying to play this bomb in towards A now. Still trapped in the middle of the map with a disadvantage in a 3 versus 4.
Yeah, so I mean, a huge statement here from both squads, whether or not you can close the thing out or whether or not you can find the cross and really get yourself onto a site. And I mean, looking at it thus far, it looks like Shenandoah may have themselves a pretty good statement to be making. Already found that first kill in the Doja Cat to really in that 3v3 scenario. You sit there and know that the bomb is down, but thing is, Shenandoah doesn't know the bomb is down. This game does not announce whether it goes down or not. It's so tiny that you have to break out the magnifying glass on each body just to go ahead and find it, all searching their wallet. So, I mean, the thing is, you can't make that call. You can't rotate around it, and you have to just sit there and hold your angles. Thankfully, if Sid just keeps on holding the angle towards the back, you can find that kill. Thing is, he goes ahead and gets flanked. That's going to be Snake finding an absolute massive double and sitting there knowing that there's only one player left.
Trying to close out the game. They'll be able to do it up the staircase and into the dirt. Kennesaw State with a beautiful 6-2 win inside of the search and destroy. They're going to be able to find themselves tied at a 1-1 series. Mick, I didn't want to say it, but, my mind might be in the gutter just a bit, but, taking a magnifying glass out and searching body parts for something specific, that brings me back to a time of myself. So, statistics for map number 2, 1-6 from Helpless, but it's Steve-O and the rest of the gang who try to go ahead and at least compliment themselves. Kennesaw State, though, a well-rounded game from everybody, kind of like what we saw inside of the search and destroy. Doja Cat fan at 5-4, everybody positive except for Shank, but had himself a decent game there towards the end, which allowed them to close the series out. So, overall, 1-1 we go into map number 3 for the control. We'll take a look at our series here overall and the maps that are going to follow suit. We're at least guaranteed a map number 4 inside of this series. So, before we kick things to break, Mick, how are we feeling about the rest of the series going forward? What are we gauging this as so far?
I mean, quite honestly, I think right there alone was a statement from KSU to know that they can win out these frag battles. Problem is, can they rely on those? And quite honestly, they can't. And something like Control, you sit there and still have to some kind of presence on the side. And honestly, with that 209 hard point, if it was maybe the 100-point club, I'd say, yeah. I mean, we're going to see Shenandoah close this thing out. They're going to grab the attacking rounds. They're going to get on that site, and they're going to go ahead and get easy attacking to be working with. But I mean, as you sit there and see that, I mean, Kennesaw at least having a little bit of objective presence, still realizing that it's on the map instead of just going ahead and taping that indicator off your screen, shows that they still have some kind of capability here to pull themselves up. If they just keep on playing for these frags, doing what they've done previously, I mean, showing that they can go ahead and find these kills, they have to go ahead and just play across the map. Honestly, with them finding time and time, if they bounce back and forth between A and B and doing nothing but breaches, I can see them absolutely demolishing the attacking round. Problem is, are they going to read that in themselves, make that adjustment, and really follow through with it?
Kennesaw State looking good in the search and destroy. Will Shenandoah be able to clap back inside of the respawn? We'll have to find out after a short break. When we come back, map number 3, it'll be a control coming your way. My name is McCormiel. With me is Mick. We'll be back after a short break. Well, the vibes are high here, at least in the production room. 1-1 tied series. Kennesaw State wins the S&D. Shenandoah Esports were able to take the Bacage hardpoint. So we split Bacages between both of these two teams, albeit in different modes. We now go to map number 3 for a bit of control. We'll take a look at our maps real quick. We're at least guaranteed a map number 4 instead of this best-of-5 series, simply because we're tied at 1 apiece. But a Tuscan and Berlin are next up on the docket, with the Tuscan search and destroy to round things out if we need go the distance all the way to the end. Mick, we talked a little bit about break before, about what we are going to see about these two teams in control alike. Respectively, though, to the side of Kennesaw State, what do they need to do better from map number 1 to have success in map number 2 and take a 2-1 lead?
Well, I mean, I sat there and mentioned it earlier. They really got to sit there and find that they can go ahead and rotate across the map. They can bounce back and forth. You can tell these players have a lot of energy, and they just can't really sit there and sit still for a little bit. And that's not a bad problem to have, honestly. You need to sit there and know that you got to have the energy. This is Call of Duty at the end of the day. You can't go ahead and stress about it. I mean, heck, even us as casters, we go ahead and move way too fast for ourselves, for our own good. But you need to sit there and realize that eventually you either need to settle down or you need to sit there and manipulate that energy. You have to control it and sit there and allocate it across the map. And that's honestly, control is the name of the game for that. You want to bounce back and forth. You want to be a nuisance on A, then on B, then on A, then on B. Grab a tick every single time. That is the quickest control attack you will ever witness in your life. Problem is, there is a lot of standards that you have to sit there and do. You have to have really clear communication with that. And once again, I'm going to go right back to the point. The fact is that Doja Cat is a fill-in. Maybe with your typical team lineup, you could do that. But here today, it's going to be a much tougher task to ask for. Knowing that Shenandoah on that defense, I mean, that's why I want them to excel. Obviously, just kind of theorizing that you typically win the defense. So, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and use that as a standard. But when you want to turn things around, if you're KSU, you have to do that. That's what you have to do. I mean, if you want to have your hand up, because knowing if we go right back around to that hard point, Shenandoah looked a heck of a lot better on it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to your point, you know, you'd love to sit there and say, you know, ping pong back in between the two sites and be like, okay, you know, send 2 people here, send 2 people here, maybe send a full man battalion over towards that B site real quick and then bounce back and forth. The problem is that's very much easier said than done. You know, you can float between sites all you want to, but you know, just being able to get one of those 2 sites and of course have that time on your side is going to be the most important thing. So obviously we're going to see that A site be the more preferred site. And yesterday I was actually watching. It was really, really weird because it was one of those games where it was a very close map between both of the 2 teams, but the team decided that they wanted to go for the B side first. They actually got the B side first, but then they couldn't push on to A. It happened twice in 2 different series that I casted yesterday. One time on Gavutu, one time on Tuscan, and it was just a very weird kind of thing where I was like, it worked to get to the site that's the hardest to take over, but then the easier site that you would have thought that they could have taken, well, maybe that should have been the more designated plan. Either way, doesn't matter. Map number 3, Tuscan control. We'll see which team can come out on top. Kennesaw State on the left, Shenandoah Esports on the right. Offensive side is going to go to the Owls. They try to get aggressive up and over towards A. Nobody peeking in the long-range angles just yet. Trauma some shots over the top. We'll be able to open things up with the first blood over towards the left. Sid's going to be on a head glitch looking for a kill. Doja Cat's going to be able to corral the rest of the boys in. First tick of progress over towards that A site.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're looking for. You've already sat there and double stacked it as well, so you're getting that extra time. You were absolutely mowing through the site, and you're already on that second tick as we're just talking alone. So, I mean, that's great. You've already sat there, used that energy, you controlled it into one spot, and you're almost grabbing the entirety of that site. Thing is, what's the exchange you're going to make? You know that everybody's going to be stacked on this B. It's going to be nothing but a hard point, and knowing that Shenandoah, they play nothing but defense, they don't have to bounce back and forth. You can't bounce back anymore. You have to sit there and push for these spawns, and that's exactly what Doja's doing.
Great opening break, up 27-21 in live. 6 advantage for the side of Kennesaw State. Horn is playing passive, laying back in the nest. Sid looks for the challenge on that left side. Trauma will fall. Pinstripe kill feed allows the side of KSU to slowly get their way up the map. They don't realize that Doja Cat fan is all the way behind them. Sid's going to actually recognize this. Now somehow escapes with a life. Has to challenge with the pistol around that right side and will finally find the kill. So you walk away with 2. Reinforcements starting to push their way up the map. Top spawn's going to be out for the side of Shenandoah. They're just trying to get Doja Cat out the back. And you got to call that out. You got to realize Doja Cat's in the back and you got to shut it down. But 23-15 now with 1 minute 40 seconds left. Already back over toward the point and stopping the clock. It's a one-on-one gunfight that's going to go in the way off screen of Trauma, or at least should have. It's just back and forth and ring around the rosy with a couple of musical chairs being thrown in the...
And even then, when you sit there and see that you're not spawning your typical spot, you sit there and have to realize you don't even need to make the call. You say, oh, naturally, we're not spawning where we're supposed to. Somebody's there. Somebody's occupying that space for us, and we can't push onto the side. In the meantime, oddly enough, KSU is not taking full control of B side. Knowing that they've already spawned these guys out, they're put on the opposite side of the map where they have to run an extra mile now. They're not getting time on the clock. They're just holding things down. They know they have a life advantage, and I really respect that. Not able to go ahead and get on that site, not getting over antsy, just moving about, going ahead, diminishing these lives, and keeping it at a 3 now kill lead. But, I mean, all things said and done, you still need to do something with that. If you can find this free round, if you know you can do that, and you go ahead and get them down to that last 4, Shenandoah is now reading what's going on. They're eventually either going to find the kills or they're going to go ahead and play slow enough to make that final break, that final hold, and make sure to lock yourself out. And as Doja goes ahead and puts over to that left B side in a typical manner, Trauma once again back in the spawn. Shenandoah, when are you going to realize where the heck you spawn?
You know, Survey would say, if you're spawning over towards the north side of the map, there's probably someone in the back lines of your spawn. 12-9 now, 3 life advantage, 25 seconds left. You got maybe one good solid push at this with the 4-man roster when the reinforcements spawn up. 8 and 6 in the back right now. Head glitches are going to be there. Player number 2, the first one to push on out. Doja Cat fan, Toxic on the staircase. One-on-one gunfight, going to go the way of Toxic. Now Snake and Shank going to be able to pair together. On the point, you stop the clock at least for a bit of time, but the player from the left side comes around the corner, is going to jump challenge out. Snake now trying to run down the ramp, isn't going to be able to find anything. 9-7, you got to hop on the point and make a heroic play here. If you're Trauma, you're not going to be able to hop in the hill. 0 seconds on the clock. Shenandoah Esports stay resilient despite having about a 9, almost 10 kill disadvantage early on inside of the round. That just goes to show how good defense in here on a Tuscan control.
And honestly, the way that entire round went, I really liked KSU's approach. I have not seen something like that yet. I think at least, I mean, of the teams that I've seen thus far. Problem is, there's no attempt to the site. I understand you're getting kills, you're holding spawns, you're doing a pretty darn good job of that, but when you spawn them out, when you know you're having the extra distance, at least have a player dedicated around B site. Be that either A, second wall to really bust through towards them from the spawn, or B, go ahead and grab B. I mean, you're sitting there giving up that time, you're giving up that clock, and you can't make kind of trades off like that. You just gave away a round. Sure, you had the life differential and you had the lead there. That's considering a lot of theoreticals that is if you get to the overtime, and that's too much things that have to line up in your favor that you're playing for in the big scheme of things. It's too difficult to control. So going back to control now on the second round, we already see once again Shenandoah stepping up, accumulating a lot of time on the safe side. Has to read the flank because Doja Cat fan once again is going to be right on your back.
Doja Cat can do it all.
She honestly can.
She's talented. Apparently has a great gun skill. But more importantly, AR, SMG, doesn't matter. Going to be able to slay out around the map. Biggest storyline early in round number 1 was Sid at 1-7, still at 3-11. Not having the greatest game of all time. A site still done and ready to be completed.
And slow and steady is the name of the game here, at least in the middle of the map. It's actually pretty quiet in terms of what we comparatively see most of the time. But, I mean, finally, not really being dwindled down just yet to that final tick. I mean, we sit there and see it sitting on that, and almost at a point of stasis. But, I mean, as the game goes on, you sit there and need a little bit more. You have to get that final push. You have to sit there and get something and get the control on the map as well with that teammate to watch the middle of the map and say, look, somebody's going on the flank. That is the big problem that Shenandoah has had. They can win the gunfights up front every single time. They look absolutely good when it comes around to that. The thing is, they are never checking their back. And by the time they go ahead and get the call, at least one trade's been made off. So, I mean, you're not really too concerned about that. And you see KSU having themselves a life advantage of 5 thus far. But, I mean, when you sit there and see the setup, Shenandoah, they get themselves influenced across the map. When they finally get themselves to push on the map and grab these spawns and really get behind the opposing side, they can make a huge play. But we just don't see that just yet as KSU completely shuts them down right there on the approach to B.
Again, it's just the slaying here from Kennesaw State. 15-4 from Trauma, 12-8 across the board. I mean, 4-15 from Zid. You hate to pin it on one person, and I mean, Helpless isn't helping at all. 3-9, but I mean, just across the board, you just gotta say it outright. The Owls are doing everything better than the Hornets right now. You gotta think maybe a couple more good pushes there on the offensive side. Things trade out, and you're able to have a 2-0 lead right now, but with Shenandoah just playing as off as they are, they just look like a completely different roster than we saw in map number 1. Player number 2 sitting in a corner. Doja Cat fan looking for what was going to be a flank play, but as the stun comes through the back, there's going to be 3 different players there. Nade around the corner. Snake on the flank, though, looking for number 1. Has found it. Toxic around the corner. Crazy ego challenge there with the MP40. Not sure if I would have done that myself, but what do I know? I'm commentating and not playing.
Yeah, even then, I'm kind of with you. You sit there, I mean, what do you do there? You need to go ahead and be a little bit more prepared. You got to check your corners. You know that you only have 0 lives remaining in terms of these respawns. You can't really play for that. You can't push onto the site. You can't really take it. You can pull off a miracle maybe, but I mean, that's about a 1 in a trillion chance. And I mean, especially in a 2v12, we haven't seen Shenandoah really go ahead and pick it up in the elimination department, especially on that old S&D to really go ahead and take the advantage in the manner that they need to. So, I mean, KSU looking outstanding once again, going ahead. That life differential they had in round 1 that they played so passively for, they just doubled down with. If anything, they almost quadrupled down with on this map or on this round alone. So, honestly, when you sit there and have a life differential like that, I say when you go on the attacking side, knowing you had so many lives in the lead, make an attempt for the B side. Do the same thing. Get behind those spawns. What are you going to do? What kind of punishment is really handed out to you? If you sit there and flunk, you go on to round 5. You sat there and already did so much prep work to go ahead and set up for the defense on that round 5. Why not go ahead and give it an attempt right now?
Talked about the negatives for Shenandoah Esports, and no, I'm not talking about Helpless and Sid. Yes, they are negative.
Well, we could talk about them.
I mean, I've already talked enough about them. I think the scoreboard says enough for itself. 21 and 14, though, from Toxic. Actually having a stellar performance right now here inside of the Tuscan Control. If literally anybody would be able to step up and help, well, they could easily have won maybe an offensive round, or the defensive wouldn't have been as close as it was. Either way, Mick, still got to talk about the fact that Trauma's at 22 and 5 right now on a 5 spree. Control, defense, and offense for round 5 still comes down to kills. So even though you might be tied at 1 apiece, you're still not looking great for a defensive try. Trauma's on 6 in a row, so just going to try and back all the way off into the spawn side. Wait for a few players to make their way up the map. You're just trying to play for that glide bomb now. Get a bit of utility to use later on in the game. Minute left here to play over towards the A in the B site. You've got 2 ticks on A, but you're losing precious time right now, especially with player number 4 and Trauma just sitting all the way back.
And just in case you're new to Call of Duty and you're sitting here watching, just go ahead and check the labels underneath the team's names. KSU, the yellow pips on the minimap, they're attacking and Shenandoah is defending. I know they are literally everywhere in both spawns right now, and you have no idea what's going on. We barely do as well. But, I mean, just to go ahead and get that clarification that, I mean, Trauma also set up in the middle. Outstanding efforts from just KSU having full control of the map. Problem is, once again, they are everywhere except the site. Once again, they're trying to set up for kills. They're trying to find these trades and get these exchanges. Problem is, if you're sitting there back in their spawn and never kill them, they're never going to be reset back to their spawn.
I thought pushed up on the right side of the map, you at least got 1 tick of progress over towards B, but unfortunately you don't get anything. The lives are still 21 to 18. Kennesaw State has played extremely passive, and it really hasn't paid out for them all that much. Sure, you're going to be able to capture the A zone here. You got a minute and 35 left to work with back over towards B, but we saw them with a large lead and a lot of time the last time. It came down to a very close game towards the end of the round, and of course they lost, ended up to time. So, yeah, you got 2 or 3 maybe good pushes at this hill, but around the back, Toxic with a couple of good shots is going to be able to at least find 1. Pinstripe kill feed to the fullest extent. You go back and forth, get great trades, but Shenandoah Esports will set up back on defense once again. Mick, this is where you fall into a trap of really not being able to perform all that well on the offensive side, even though you've been slaying out to a perfect team.
Yeah, I mean, already looking at the game once again, KSU just kind of maintaining a lead, but even then it starts to diminish as time goes on. They sat there, took so long to get control of that site, but by the time they grab it and really set themselves up to get towards these spawns and not even the site, they only have a minute left. You see a lot of teams that get very aggressive towards that site and stop playing for map control to be almost in the same kind of scenario, but with a minute 30 remaining. So, I mean, I'm just not really sure where the trade-offs are going to come through. Maybe they could go ahead and surprise us there towards the rear end, but I mean, it all comes down to whether or not Doja Cat fan can go ahead and surprise Shenandoah. And I mean, once you sit there and spend your entire time doing nothing but flank and pushing through the map at alternate angles, Shenandoah is going to allocate a player to that. Play in the spawn, play in a corner, and just hold that out and find that kill. And that's exactly what they do. And with that alone, they found themselves an advantage in lives, and they found themselves a pretty solid hole when it comes down to this defense. So they're definitely going to be set up for this with only 20 seconds remaining. I doubt KSU's making the move.
Down by 1 life. All it takes is 1 good break. But with 1 player already falling and the close spawns for the defensive side, it's going to be all but impossible at this point. 10 and 20 from Sid. Turned it up a little bit, but again, I guess it's marginal at this point. 10 seconds left. Player in Snake trying to push out the door, going to get cut down. So nobody going to be able to get across the map. Passive play early on in the game comes back to bite them. And unfortunately, with only a minute and 30 seconds to get back over towards that B site, all that fighting is going to be really for none. You thought maybe they had a tick over at B at the very beginning of that round, or at least about halfway through it. But the biggest problem is here, Mick. Now Shenandoah are at match point, albeit they have an offensive try that they have to win in order to win this game.
Yeah.
But this is another round for them to go ahead and accrue some kills. But you can't say anything bad about KSU, specifically with Trauma. 28-8 here in the control, and somehow they're losing 1-2. You can accredit that to the defensive side being extremely easy, or the offensive side just being a little bit too tough to tame.
Which even then, I mean, regardless of whether the stance is, you still sit there and look at KSU. They are doing so much of a better job of slaying. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're planning the spawns. They're playing aggressive. I mean, that's something you don't typically see on the defense. You see teams just defaulting on these sides, playing it slow and steady, making sure not to push up too much and then just work on the side and not trying to push into the other side. KSU throws that ideology out the window. You can already see, I mean, Toxic having to watch spawns on the attacking side purely because you know that Doja's going to be in the back every single time. I mean, that player's going to spawn and say, what is the most lenient area that I can run to, the most open section of the map, and where are they playing? Let me know so I can run literally all the way away from that and then find myself a flank. That is being caught on to a little bit too quickly. You need to push with your teams. You need to find these shots because Shank and Trauma are slaying out way too much for you not to be there and find yourself some free trades and initiative onto his side.
Northward push after going ahead and capturing the A zone. We saw something very similar the last time. Kennesaw State, plenty of lives to work with here, specifically on the defensive side. All you got to do is play back, play a little bit passive, wait for them to come to you, and that's exactly what they've done so far. Steve-O around the right side corner. Doja Cat's going to spot the barrel of the gun, going to be able to take the gunfight win, and of course find the last two players who are coming in and around the church. Kennesaw State making a great play here on the defensive side. Going to be a break here from Shenandoah that's going to try and come on in. Toxic will find the first one. Doja Cat fan up the staircase, should be behind too. First one's going to be there. Information on the second. Unfortunate team kill there. Another one's going to be coming up the backside of the staircase. You just hope that you can find the shots there onto Steve-O first. Tries to escape out with the life, can't do it. 13 then 22 now for Sid, as it was Shank who was going to be able to come from behind. Helpless in the rest of the gang, now pushing up for P5.
Even then just playing aggressive but also playing passive at the same time, exactly how you want to be on this defense, getting enough aggression to get the idea of whether players are pushing up or not. You already knew that Helpless was pushing up, but you sit there and look at the scoreboard, you're saying, oh, he's 13 and 20. If you're the likes of Trauma, you know that is child's play for you. You're not really concerned about that guy. You want to sit there and have the full force of a team. You want to sit there and stack up these streaks. You want even more influence. You know that you used to already have some in your hand to use, but you're not forced to ever use them. You're saving that up for the next round. You're waiting for that extra defense. You're waiting to just go ahead and curb stomp the likes of Shenandoah when they have that final attempt that they're trying to get on the attacking side. As you already see, once again, 18-14 on the lives, and KSU just holding things out, doing outstanding work when it comes down to this defense. Where the heck is this when it comes down to hardpoint, man? Because we are missing all of it.
Continuously pounding them with slaying numbers across the board. 17 and 9 overall. 12 seconds left to get across back to the point. You see the close spawns close up over towards the top portion of the map. Doja Cat's going to be there. Nobody's going to be able to contest this. Last kill off screen going to go to Snake before the round comes to a close. That's going to do it. 2-2 we go. Defense to be decided. However, if I was a betting man, and of course just did the math inside of my head, which I'm not going to do because I'm not a computer, it's going to be a defensive win here, or rather a defensive side for the side of KSU. So, rewarded for being a slay-heavy team. Sure, it didn't reward them in map number 1, but here in the control, it might just do that.
And this is a big problem. I mean, to show that, I mean, sure, they had themselves a game plan. It's looking really good and it's working against Shenandoah, but keep in mind, this is also kind of the bottom cut when it comes down to the second split. A lot of teams aren't going to fall for stuff like this. They're not going to fall for these games and sit there and say, oh, well, we're going to fall for flanks every single time. We're going to let players get behind us. We're not going to win the slaying department. For teams that do, you actually have to outsmart them. You have to look for attacking rounds because there will be other people that just whelm you. And so long as you win it this week, you still have more time to make those adjustments. But as it stands right now, man, I mean, Shenandoah already just overflowing this A side, able to go ahead and grab it. So, I mean, sitting at 220 is a really, really good shot.
Well, so I believe we are going to step aside from that game for a second. Apparently, somebody lagged out inside of the game, so I guess we'll probably have a round 5 replay there at some point in time. My question is, what will happen with the streaks? That is yet to be unknown. Are we going to go into a game, give somebody free streaks? I have no clue. We'll find out. That's not for me to speculate or decide upon. Either way, we're going to send things to a quick break. We'll come back with a replay of round 5 or whatever the results may be. My name is McCormill. With me is Mick. KSU, Shenandoah, tied at 1-1 in the series and 2-2 in the control. Well, while we stepped away, ruling came in that Shenandoah was going to get the win for the control 2-1. I'll read you the exact ruling verbatim. Due to the first point being capped, the round was to be played out. However, KSU ended the game, thus they FF the round. Series resumes 2-1 Shenandoah. So KSU now have to win these last 2 maps in order to not only complete the sweep, or not even reverse sweep, but just complete the series win for themselves, and of course find themselves with their first win inside of the top cut. However, crazy enough, that's not the biggest story of what we're talking about right now, because if you missed it on Alpha, Ottawa fell down. And they didn't just fall, they got reverse swept to fall.
Yeah, they didn't fall
Their
down.
First
they got
series
broke down.
loss ever in the CCL, unless you want to count like last season with like the sister team beating the other sister team in the playoffs and like whatnot. So like, you know, like that, like technically yes, but like overall not really. Crazy, actually crazy. So Ottawa down. That's gonna be, I mean, I haven't seen Twitter talking about CCL stuff like that since the before season controversies about some people playing inside of the CCL. That's the most active I've seen CCL Twitter in I don't know how long, and it was kind of funny. So overall, again, as we said beforehand, Ottawa down. They left the lobby and everything like that too, which was obviously like kind of like, damn, that was the realization of it all. But credit to GCU, they stayed resilient. They came and won on the reverse sweep. We go here now back to Shenandoah and KSU. Shenandoah up 2-1 inside of this best of 5 series. Doja Cat in towards the point. First couple of kills going to go the way of Shenandoah. The Hornet strike first here inside of the point.
Most definitely do it. Even then, looking at their prior hard point, they had a pretty outstanding look and a pretty good resume to go ahead and follow up on this. But even then, the entry, it's going to be pretty well. But once again, KSU need to sit there and find a breach of their own. And with 2 players down, they're trying to go ahead and look for these rotations. With the spawns being fairly long off right now, they sit there and know they don't have the best stance overall. They got to sit there and find themselves a look, kind of get themselves a breach onto the side. They got to find a different angle to come at this from. With only 20 seconds remaining on the clock, they have to go and start setting up for next, knowing that they are going to get caught even in a further deficit if they let this get out of control.
If you're just joining us from the Alpha stream, welcome, welcome, welcome. Shenandoah, KSU were tied 2-2 at the end of the control. A ruling did give Shenandoah the win for map number 3, so the series has been very close thus far. Could go all the way down to a game number 5. We have yet to see that, but for the side of Kennesaw State, down right now, 26-7. We rotate in over towards P2. 5 seconds off, it just popped up. Doja Can, and of course, Snake pairing for a couple. The big story out of map number 1, though, Mick, was of course KSU outslaying Shenandoah by a hefty amount, but unfortunately still losing that map just due to the fact that a lot of those kills almost came up empty-handed, and of course they didn't capitalize on getting hill time after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, so everything so far, Shenandoah looking pretty good. Just saw on the follow setup the what they had in prior when it came around to the last hard point. Just slaying out, looking outstanding this far, especially Toxic right now and Sid. I mean, both respectively, both only having 1 death so far, and Toxic having 6 of the kills right now as it seems. So, I mean, go ahead, keep that streak going. Get yourself a pretty solid standing, and even then, you're looking at Berlin. Not too many sides to really use these streaks on, but still, the intel is useful nonetheless when you sit there and see that they are continuing away with it. Toxic now sitting on 8, KSU still struggling to get on the site with 6 seconds remaining. You almost grabbed the entirety of this last one.
8 straight kills from Toxic. Volk in the middle of the map, rotating over from point number 2. You see Snake in the top of the window. Unfortunate timing from the middle of the map, as Trauma will finally take the streak down. However, you have earned a glide bomb. So that's going to be useful later on, specifically over towards probably P4 and P5, where you're going to get the most use out of it. Helpless with a nade there on a Snake. You're going to trade back and forth for another pinstripe kill feed. KSU really have not been able to find any footing here on Berlin thus far. They've had their might and tried for rotations and a couple of breaks here and there. Hasn't come to fruition. This is going to be the first one where they try to fully attempt on the break. Trauma around the corner and Doja Cat Fan are going to line up. Toxic from the backside of the room. Going to be able to get the final shot into the player. 3 in a row yet again. 12 and 3. Quadruple positive.
Yeah, a great sitting here for Shenandoah. I mean, just literally doubling down on what they've done thus far. And even in that control, I mean, things are going to sting for them a little bit. KSU, they had to fight for this, knowing that they were probably going to close out that control with streaks. And with them being on the defense in that final round, things are really starting to shake up, and they're probably really ticked right now. But even then, they got to bite back. They still have to fight. They still have to keep going. Knowing regardless of really the stance of that game, they were going to have to win this hard point to go ahead and close out the series. And they were going to have to still run through it. Problem is, right now, as we see Shenandoah setting up on sites, having full control the map thus far. And I mean, Toxic just doing his thing still. Now sitting at 12-4, just running away with this, and everybody else still following through and giving themselves that backup. You see Trauma able to go ahead and create a little bit of a break thus far with only 40 seconds left on the clock still for the site, but there's still plenty of time to go ahead and make this somewhat of an even up. Problem is, if you grab all 40 seconds, you're only halfway the threshold that Shenandoah is sitting at thus far.
Kennesaw State looking to make themselves a formidable comeback. Down by about 70 points now. Getting down 2-1 in the series. You're in the southeast top cut here. For folks who are just joining on in. Both of these teams in the bottom four right now. 0-4 inside of the top cut is KSU. Shenandoah's 1-3, trying to win their way into the automatic qualification in those top 8 spots inside of the top cut, trying to avoid the LCQ overall. 3 seconds left. Point number 5 about to pop. Doja Cat Fan and Snake going to be the first ones there. Trauma will open things up, and Shank will pair along for another. Helpless will fall. It's going to be a 3-2 trade overall, with KSU maintaining the hill position for now. Steve-O in the point, just trying to get a little bit of information, maybe a couple of peppers so the teammates can come in with reinforcements. Either way, as the comeback continues to try and mount, Shenandoah Esports look to run away with it.
They most definitely do. I mean, still sitting at 106, not really accumulating too much time since they're still making to get sure to get these trades. They're getting these kills. Thing is, they have to translate the time. And this isn't the best site to do it, I'll admit. I mean, it's right there in the open. You can't find too much of an angle, and you don't have to cross there right above you on that second floor to just overlooking that site. So you don't really want to risk too much. Instead, you want to play for the post. You want to go ahead, look for the rotation, look for the next spawn, and really just play some defense towards the outskirts while still clipping off those players that are trying to accumulate that time. But thing is, now only with 15 seconds left, you sit there, you're not worried about it anymore. You want to get these exchanges, and right there, red just across the board on the kills for the likes of Shenandoah, looking outstanding thus far, still doing what they've been doing the entirety of this game thus far, just slaying out, finding time, and sure at a consistent rate, not an overzealous one by any means, but I mean at a healthy pace.
Going down the hill now, Doja Cat Fan going to be rotating over towards that right side of the map. You look for player number 7 and Shank on board. Trying to find a flank, doesn't realize the player's on the staircase from behind. Steve was going to be able to pick it up. Unfortunate timing there, but for the side of Shenandoah, just another walk in the park round for them here. 140-54, almost up by 100 points here on the side of KSU in Berlin. You have to think this was probably their map choice coming into it. Very, very comfortable. And another game where it's not really necessarily a complete outslaying of KSU. Yes, they're up in numbers right now, but for the side of KSU, there's been multiple times where they've gotten, say, a 4-5 kill feed that hasn't equated to hill time. Finally, they're going to be able to break on in. You just hope that down 100 points, it's not too little too late. Thankfully, on a map like Berlin, you can rotate to a couple of hills and chain a few together. It's just going to be a bit more difficult than, say, a map like Tuscan.
Yeah, it most definitely is. And even then, to kind of go ahead and talk about what we saw earlier, I mean, KSU has a lot of energy. They can move across the map. They can get the job done. Thing is, they just have to control it. They have to find a way to really just hone in that energy, find a way to utilize it to be a little bit more beneficial for them. But they haven't found that yet. Once they go ahead and get themselves onto a site, they go ahead and keep on moving around, losing some time here and there. And even right now, Snake just sitting on the top, waiting for his teammates' elements, and not too bad of a call. But, I mean, you have the Sharks surrounding the waters right now. You don't have too much of a player base, and Steve-O is here on site looking to slay out.
151-83. Kennesaw State slowly but surely mounting their way back into this game. Not a lot of elevation in the southeast, but you hope that they can climb whatever mountain is out there to be able to find their way back into this game. Sid, 4 in a row out towards the side of the docks, playing head glitches. Thinking about the rotation here over towards P3. Snake almost loses a crucial one-on-one gunfight. Finally is able to find the last shot in the way of a headshot onto Sid. Last time it was Shenandoah who rotated early out over towards P3. This time it's Kennesaw State who are going to be able to open up the front door. Floodgates are open, and it's time to let the water run into points.
Yeah, I mean, already a lot of points being accumulated here for Shenandoah, and the comeback kind of looking somewhat doable here for KSU, but I mean, Toxic with that kill streak, going ahead getting a kill, getting all the intel to be working off of as well. You give the read to your teammates and say, look, here's where they're coming from. We know what the setup is now. We go ahead, get the rest of the time. We could get 200 plus off this right here, right now. Double up KSU again. Sure, they're not in the 100-point club, but I mean, we're looking a heck of a lot better than them, and that's all that matters. We're trying to close out this series. We're up 2-1. We can't go ahead and choke anything out now.
Steve-O hops on in, reads the players inside of the corner. Doja Cat Fan will fall. You look to the side of KSU, only one player positive, and that's Trauma, who's been stellar throughout the entirety of this series thus far. You'd love for other players to go ahead, find their hand inside of the hard point here, step up to be overcoming on everything that Shenandoah has thrown at them. The Hornets, though, look so strong. Rotation over towards P4. They're set up for it. The problem is right now, Mick, KSU try their might on a couple of rotations that they've had. They get broken just simply way too easy.
No, I completely agree. I mean, that's been their problem the entirety of the series, and whether or not it comes down to sides on control or whether it comes down to search and destroy. I mean, search and destroy was a little bit of a different equation now, but I mean, as it seemed on control and like a hard point, they just can't hold things down. They sit there, find themselves such an energetic attack, but whenever it comes around to playing that defense, they just can't seem to do it very efficiently. They go ahead and play the game pretty slow. Then they just find themselves moving about too much and not in a kind of counterclockwise area that's in a pattern. It's just very random. It's kind of sporadic, and it's not really benefiting them to the fullest extent.
30 seconds left in P4. Kennesaw State maintaining the hill, at least for the time being. Toxic looking to push up the map on 2 in a row. You look to Shank on the opposition, who's on 3, Doja Cat on 2. Minute 16 in the hill for Doja Cat fan overall, still down by about 60 points. Kill feed once again starting to light up yellow. This is what we saw in the last map, number 1, where we really were seeing Kennesaw State turn up towards the mid portion of the game. It just was too little too late over towards the end of the game, and it might be the same consequences that they face here. Either way, rotation to P5, up and towards the top of L3. Toxic is going to be there. Up the staircase, Steve-O from behind is going to be able to help with the automaton in hand. Now maintaining hill control. Shank and Trauma trying to push in double on back. 50 seconds left in a 4-down kill feed. KSU is going to get some much-needed time.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, they got to make themselves relevant in this fight. They really haven't had too much time of contention here and there. They sat there and been doubled the entirety of this game thus far. And finally, this could be their opportunity to strike back. Thing is, they have to translate these skills to time. They have the setup, but the thing is, are they going to stand on site? Knowing this right there in the middle, a lot of guns are going to be aiming at them, and knowing that there's a lot of crosses that are going to be set up as well, you sit there and you get the clear on the outside. A great kill there from Drama, going ahead, doing what he does best, finding the shots, and then now being on a 6 spree. But, I mean, you can't keep that going. You can only be alive for so long, and even then, you sit there and bought enough time for KSU to grab themselves some more points, bring the contestant down, and now Shenandoah is finally feeling the pressure.
196 to 117. Huge 10 seconds of scrap time should go the way of Shenandoah. You see Trauma going ahead and making the push in the left side of the mini-map, now held down by the Shenandoah Esports roster. If you take a look, you can see all the yellow arrows now making their way, pushing up the map once again. It's Shank trying to make a big pinch play on a flank here, going to be able to find the first. Second kill around the corner won't be there. Pinstripe kill feed. 2 more players now at the front of the hill for Kennesaw State. Snake is able to find 1. Reinforcements now backing up each side. The break is on for Kennesaw State. You got to be able to take down Helpless, who's able to find 1. Now make it the second. That might have very well put the nail in the coffin here in the game. The dagger trying to be made here for Shenandoah. They're trying to put this series away as Trauma and Shank now pair for a couple more kills. They're not going to stop. It's defiance here inside of Berlin, but the rotation needs to be there after they hold down 25 seconds of time.
You see a huge wave of desperation there from KSU, going ahead, finally finding the kills necessary, but thing is, they have to do what they've been lacking the entirety of this game, translate it into points, and they finally get themselves a little bit of comfy on site, but with the scrap time, you see Shenandoah now only needing 23 points to really close this thing out, and Toxic's playing for it. He's picking up scrap time. He's saying, look, I'm bringing attention over here. You guys have to back up, and I think they made the right call right there, saying, look, we can't look back now. We have to grab the entirety of this next point. We have to double things up because both of us can close on it right now, so we need to be there first, and that's exactly what they do. Doja going ahead, playing for these spawns, getting a little bit antsy there, and the backup from Shank also comes through. So a great standing. They're catching things up with 48 seconds remaining. If they play this one flawlessly, they could get it. But even then, you already step off. That's a big problem. And Shenandoah, they only need 10 now.
It's going to be flawless. But Kennesaw State, they've got to get back over towards the point. The flood is in. Shank's going to be able to find 2. Trade back and forth. Snake is going to be able to find the 3rd to go ahead and help on in. Last player alive there from Shenandoah Esports. Helpless. He didn't have a great map, number 3, but goes big and pops 3 to potentially seal the game. Shank around the corner. It's Helpless. Who gets number 4? Steve-O will finish things off with a nade. Pat yourselves on the back. The Shenandoah Hornets are going to be able to take map number 3 in the series 3-1. Kennesaw State, try your might to fighting towards the hill. Helpless. Well, we said he wasn't living up to the name in map number 3. How about this time he turns around and saves everything for the Hornets?
Absolutely comes big for the rest of the squad there, and that's exactly what we needed. I mean, we sat there, mentioned it so many times here tonight on the Bravo stream, just regardless over the course of CCL, generally saying a team is only as weak as its weakest link. And I mean, quite honestly, we sit there and see Shenandoah being that team, showing up, playing the game out, and KSU not really exactly doing that. I mean, we sat there, obviously, man, we've had a night of Call of Duty, and I mean, a lot of teams have sat there and had a lot of disappointments tonight. But I mean, quite honestly, at the end of the day, there is a winner, there is a loser, and you sit there and you get what practice you can. You sit there and play the game the best you can, and honestly, Shenandoah finally stepping up, showing some consistency here tonight, looking pretty strong to back it up.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be some talk about this series overall, but for Shenandoah, Map number 4 was what was really what we expected of them after map number 1. It was chaotic on Bacage to start things off, but we'll go ahead and retake a look here at our entire series overall. Starting all the way back when we started on Bacage, again, it was a Shenandoah Esports win inside of the hard point, 250 to 209. Then it was a search and destroy on Bacage, where the side of Kennesaw State, albeit not having their best game mode of search and destroy, they made one of the best stands, I guess you could say, so far for themselves this season, but unfortunately it falls short there in the Tuscan control. They slayed out a good amount inside of that series. Unfortunately, though, to the ruling, they do lose that game. And then, of course, in map number 4, another respawn that doesn't go their way. So, overall, again, it was a fun series.
Yeah. But
at the end of the day, only one team can win.
Yeah, there's been plenty of those fun series tonight. I mean, obviously, we sat there and saw plenty of Game 5s. We saw a lot. And even then, obviously, what you kind of alluded to, obviously, the people coming from the Alpha stream know what we're talking about. But, I mean, everything's said and done. We got to sit there and consider the entire league. We can't talk about these top teams, obviously, as much as people want to. You got to sit there and look at these bottom-cut teams as well.
Sure.
Not really doing all that well, not having the most impressive performance. But Shenandoah, I mean, Kennesaw didn't have themselves a win in the second split yet. But Shenandoah did. This makes them an advocate to really step up, to get themselves through the rest of the series, go to this last chance qualifier, look that much better to get themselves in the playoff. It comes down to scenarios like these, to where you never know who could topple who, and it's teams like this that you never sit there and care, really give too much of a glance towards, that could sit there and manage something else at the end of the day. So, I mean, you got to keep your eyes here on Shenandoah. As crazy as it may sound, I may sit there and be like, people are thinking, Mick, whoa, slow down. They sit there and beat Kennesaw. Well, the thing is, that's practice. That's knowing that you've sat there and stepped up. You've won that. You know what kind of weaknesses to manipulate. You sat there and faced a new play style, because Kennesaw has done something I've barely seen out of any other team. If you can make sure to hold down things like that, showing that your team can practice something like that over the course of time, if they keep on writing down these notes, accumulating the paper, and sitting there seeing what they have to deal with over the course of the season, they go ahead and make sure to tighten up every single little seal. They can sit there and be that much better of a team. Same thing with anybody else here today.
Mick, the problem here with Shenandoah and KSU isn't the fact that these teams can't win on any given night against good teams. The biggest problem is their division is stacked. And when I talk about, you know, the entirety of the Southeast top cut that they're in right now, both of these teams came into this game instead of the bottom cut. Kennesaw State, unfortunately, that hole becomes deeper. They fall a little further into it. For Shenandoah, yeah, it gets a bit better. You know, you were 1-3, now 2-3, so you'll kind of be floating around with the likes of the Mox COD area. Maybe with UNC Charlotte, FGCU's down there at 2-2 as well. So with some of those teams, yes. But you look to the top of that division, Penn State, Florida State, Barry Cod, High Point, and Concord. All 5 of those names stick out immediately, and really everybody inside of this top cut of the Southeast stage is going to stand out at you. So no matter what you do from here on out, it's going to be a difficult feat to overcome inside of your cut. You're just, again, trying to make it out by winning your way into the playoffs and not having to go through the LCQ, because as we saw last year when we had 8 different regions instead of just the 4, those 4 playoff spots that were accoladed to the teams that needed to win to get in and weren't a part of that top cut. Oh boy, was it special? It was ridiculous how many teams that should have made it fell short to some teams that just turned up at the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's all it really comes down to. And this is where it all starts. Going ahead, getting those reps in, making sure that even though your scrims don't go all that well, you don't sit there and get all the notes right now. You need to figure out in this stage here specifically, especially when you're on broadcast, you have people watching you from other teams saying, our matches are over. Let's sit there and see what's going on in the rest of our division. They're sitting there saying, well, Shenandoah don't look all that hot. Let's go ahead and get ready for this. That could be an easy job next week. It is your responsibility to know that you have to sit there and come back 10 times as stronger. Because people are watching. This is split 2 now. You don't have to worry about people who are getting eliminated and stuff. Everybody has a second chance here right now. And you have to sit there and make sure that once you've given that second chance over the side, that you have lost the season out from under you. You can't sleep on anybody. You don't know what could happen, and you can't sit there and take chances to risk it knowing how much is on the line.
Shenandoah They pull off, I don't want to say an upset, but, you know, they pull off a good win over a strong Kennesaw State University roster. 3-1 overall. We're not going to hark on this too much longer. That's going to do it here for the Bravo broadcast tonight. And, of course, the end of week number 8 inside of the CCL. Next week is going to be the last week before we take our CCL spring break hiatus. Then we'll come back a little bit later on towards the beginning of April. Either way, week 9 will kick off at 7:30 Eastern on Monday next week. You'll find us back here on College COD Bravo as well as College COD on the Alpha stream. Either way, that's going to do it for us. Thank you to production. Thank you for everybody for sticking around, the teams, the players, and of course you guys watching. You make the CCL possible and continue to have a blossoming playground of young generational talents who are going to potentially work their way up all the way to the highest levels of Call of Duty. My name's Ben McCormiel. With me has been Mick. Hope you guys have a great night. Stay safe. We'll see you next week for week number 9.